The quantum communication array hummed beneath the Atacama Desert, its crystalline matrices pulsing with possibilities as humanity reached for the stars. Commander Jun Zhao stood in the control center, watching holographic data streams dance across curved displays. After 15 years of development, the QCOM project promised to revolutionize space exploration, allowing instant communication across vast distances. Signal integrity at 98%, reported Lieutenant Maya Santos, her fingers flying across the haptic interface. Quantum entanglement holding steady. Jun nodded, dark eyes fixed on the primary display. This test would push the boundaries of their technology, attempting to send a message to their furthest space probe at the edge of the solar system. The whole world watched, holding its breath as humanity prepared to break the light-speed barrier in communications. The array powered up, its deep thrum resonating through the facility's foundations. But as the signal initiated, something unexpected happened. The quantum field twisted, frequencies shifting into patterns never before seen. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Commander, we're receiving a return signal," Maya announced, her voice tight with confusion. "But it's not from our probe." The message came in fragments, assembling itself through the quantum noise. At first, they thought their translation algorithms had malfunctioned. The message was in perfect Mandarin, then Spanish, then English, cycling through Earth's major languages as if the sender knew them all. "To the children of Terra, guardians of chaos and creativity, we bring grave tidings and desperate hope." The control room fell silent as the message continued, revealing a truth that would forever change humanity's place in the cosmos. They weren't alone. They had never been alone. But more than that, they were needed. The messenger identified himself as High Counselor Ixal of the Galactic Alliance, speaking from a hidden outpost in the Oort cloud. Their advanced civilization had been watching Earth for centuries, not with malice or indifference, but with purpose. As he spoke, holographic star maps bloomed in the air, showing the vast expanse of known space and the growing darkness that threatened it all. The stellar shadows moved between dimensions, Ixal explained, his translated voice carrying notes of both ancient wisdom and urgent fear. They consume energy, matter, and consciousness itself. Our most advanced weapons pass through them like light through glass. Our most sophisticated predictive algorithms cannot anticipate their movements. We are failing, falling, one system at a time. Jun leaned forward, studying the tactical displays that showed the shadow of extinction creeping across the galaxy. "Why come to us now? Earth has barely reached its own moon." Ixal's response changed everything they thought they knew about their species' isolation. "You were never abandoned or overlooked. You were preserved. While other civilizations ascended through pure logic and technological perfection, humanity walked a different path. You dream. You create. You defy predictions and embrace chaos. These are not weaknesses. They are the weapons we need most desperately." The revelation struck like lightning through the facility. Humanity's perceived backwardness, their emotional nature, their illogical choices, their ability to find unlikely solutions, had been deliberately protected. The galaxy didn't need their technology. It needed their unpredictability. "We have 3 days, Ixal concluded. "A shadow vanguard approaches your system. Will you help us? Will you show us how to think beyond the boundaries of logic?" Jun looked around the control room, at the faces of his team, descendants of countless cultures, carriers of ancient wisdom and modern innovation. Their quantum array, designed to reach across space, had instead reached across species. Perhaps that too was part of humanity's gift, finding unexpected paths to impossible destinations. He stepped forward, straightening his uniform. Their first words to another civilization would set the tone for everything that followed. "High Counselor," he responded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Humanity stands ready. Tell us what you know about these shadows. We'll show you what Earth can do." The message was sent. Humanity's chapter in galactic history had begun. Not as students or supplicants, but as teachers of chaos, creativity, and courage. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what these strange, unpredictable beings would do next. Lieutenant Isabella Rodriguez stood at the viewport of the Terra Nova, watching Earth shrink into a blue marble behind them. The converted cargo vessel barely resembled its original form, its hull now strengthened with crystalline lattices provided by the Galactic Alliance. But it was the modifications her crew had made that truly set it apart. Engineering reports the biomatrix is stable, announced Lieutenant Kai Chen, monitoring the ship's experimental systems. The algae farms are producing twice the expected energy output. Isabella smiled, remembering how the alien engineers had scoffed at their primitive approach. While other species built their ships around antimatter cores, humanity had turned their life support systems into a power source. The photosynthetic arrays, originally designed to feed the crew, now powered shield harmonics that could adapt to any attack pattern. Multiple contacts emerging from quantum space, reported Senior Officer Riza Puddle from Tactical. Confirming signatures, it's the Sirius Defense Fleet. The massive alien vessels materialized around them, their crystalline structures catching starlight like frozen fractals. Admiral Nexer's face appeared on the main display, his multifaceted eyes studying the human ship with barely concealed skepticism. Lieutenant Rodriguez, your vessel's modifications are concerning, the Admiral stated. Our analysis suggests 17 different ways your improvised systems could catastrophically fail. With respect, Admiral, Isabella replied. Earth's history is full of improvised solutions that shouldn't have worked. Yet here we are. Before Nexer could respond, the emergency channels erupted with warnings. A stellar shadow had emerged from dimensional space, its void-black form distorting reality around it. The Sirius fleet's perfect formation scattered as energy beams passed harmlessly through the entity. All ships, fall back to secondary positions, Nexer ordered, his crystalline flagship already moving to protect the convoy. But Isabella saw something different in the chaos. The shadow wasn't just attacking, it was feeding. Each energy beam it absorbed made its form more substantial, more anchored in their dimension. Kai, route all power to the algae farms, she commanded. Riza, prepared to vent the oxygen tanks on my mark. Her crew moved without hesitation, trusting their commander's instincts. The Terra Nova's hull began to glow with bioluminescent light as the algae farms went into overdrive. The shadow sensed the energy spike and turned toward them, exactly as Isabella had hoped. Now, she ordered. The oxygen tanks vented, creating a cloud of rapidly freezing particles around the ship. At the same time, the algae farms released a massive burst of energy. The shadow rushed forward to feed, and found itself trapped. The frozen oxygen molecules, carrying traces of organic energy, stuck to its form like cosmic frost. Engineering, initiate gravity pulse, Isabella commanded. The Terra Nova's artificial gravity reversed violently, creating a localized singularity. The frozen particles coating the shadow were pulled inward, dragging the entity with them. For the first time, the dimensional being found itself bound by physical laws it couldn't ignore. All ships, concentrate fire, Isabella broadcast to the fleet. The combined weapons of the Sirius vessels struck the now vulnerable shadow, shattering its compromised form into quantum dust. Silence fell across the command channels. Admiral Nexer's expression had shifted from skepticism to something approaching awe. Lieutenant Rodriguez, how did you know that would work? Isabella gestured to her crew. We didn't, but Earth's oceans taught us that sometimes the smallest organisms can bring down the largest predators. We just had to find the right way to make the shadow play by our rules. The Admiral nodded slowly. Perhaps there is something to be learned from your unconventional methods. The Galactic Council will want to hear about this. As the fleet regrouped, Isabella studied the tactical display. One shadow had fallen, but countless others remained. Yet for the first time since the war began, they had proof. The shadows weren't invincible. They just needed to be approached with the right combination of human ingenuity and natural law. "Plot a course to the next rally point," she ordered, "and keep those alga farms running. Something tells me we're going to need them again." The Terra Nova moved forward into the star-studded darkness, carrying with it humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy: the ability to turn impossible situations into improbable victories. Professor Hikaru Tanaka paced the holographic chamber of the Galactic Council's research station, surrounded by floating neural patterns of various species. The crystalline walls reflected cascading data streams as he studied the stark differences between alien and human thought processes. "Play the battle sequence again," he instructed the station's eye. "Focus on the moment before Lieutenant Rodriguez deployed the algae defense." The holographic display shifted, showing interweaving threads of neural activity. The alien commander's thoughts moved in precise, geometric patterns, beautiful in their complexity but utterly predictable. In contrast, Rodriguez's neural scan resembled a chaotic dance, jumping between possibilities that seemed to have no logical connection. "Professor, the Council awaits your findings," announced senior researcher Lin Wei, entering the chamber. Her own neural pattern, displayed above, showed the fascinating blend of logical alien influence and human creativity that marked Earth's new generation of scientists. Hikaru nodded, still watching the dancing lights. "Tell them I found something. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about the shadows." The council chamber was a vast amphitheater carved from living crystal, each tier holding representatives from different star systems. Hikaru stood before them, his holographic data swimming in the air around him. "Distinguished council members," he began, "we've been fighting the stellar shadows as if they were simply advanced enemies. But there's something far more fundamental. They're the embodiment of pure logic." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. High Counselor Ixel leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light. "Explain, Professor." "Look at these thought patterns," Hikaru said, expanding the neural displays. "Every advanced species in the galaxy has evolved toward perfect logical efficiency. Your thoughts move like mathematical equations, elegant, precise, and absolutely predictable. The shadows can read these patterns instantly, countering your strategies before you even complete them." He brought up the human neural scans. "But human minds are different. We dream. We imagine. We make cognitive leaps that defy logic. The shadows cannot predict our actions because we ourselves often don't know what we're going to do until we do it." "Are you suggesting we should abandon logic?" asked a council member, their tone suggesting this was unthinkable. "No," Hikaru smiled. "I'm suggesting we need to embrace both. Look at what happened at the Sirius battle. The shadow couldn't comprehend using a life support system as a weapon because it wasn't logical. That moment of confusion was all we needed." He gestured to Lin Wei, who stepped forward with her own neural pattern displayed. "This is what happens when we combine our approaches. The logical framework remains, but within it, creativity blooms. The shadows can't track these hybrid thought patterns. They're like trying to predict where a leaf will land in a whirlwind." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Hikaru waited, knowing this wouldn't be an easy shift for species that had spent millennia perfecting their logical minds. "What do you propose?" Ixel finally asked. "Let me teach your commanders to think like humans," Hikaru replied. "Not to abandon their logical strength, but to weave through it the chaos of creativity. Imagine your precision guided by intuition, your calculations sparked by inspiration." He brought up the battle footage again. "The shadows are perfect logical engines, but the universe itself isn't logical. Quantum mechanics, chaos theory, the very fabric of reality, all contain elements of fundamental uncertainty. Humanity never achieved perfect logic because we never lost our connection to that cosmic chaos." The council deliberated for hours, but in the end, the decision was clear. They had tried pure logic against the shadows, and they had failed. It was time for a new approach. In the days that followed, Hikaru began the strangest teaching assignment in human history. He taught quantum physicists to paint, strategic commanders to dance, and battle coordinators to meditate. Slowly, their neural patterns began to change, developing the unpredictable sparks that marked human consciousness. The shadows had evolved to counter perfect logic, but they had never faced an enemy that could dream, and in those dreams forge weapons that transcended the boundaries of reason itself. Miguel Herrera stood before the holographic battle simulator, his fingers dancing across the control interface as 30 alien pilots watched in stunned silence. The simulation showed his legendary speedrun through Stellar Siege VI, a game that had accidentally predicted real space combat tactics decades before humanity reached the stars. "Notice how I'm ignoring the obvious attack vectors," he explained, his virtual ship weaving through impossible gaps in the enemy formation. "In gaming, we call this exploiting the geometry. The shortest path isn't always the best path." Commander Nix of the Centauri fleet raised a crystalline appendage. "But your maneuvers violate basic combat efficiency protocols. The energy expenditure alone would get me killed in real combat." Miguel grinned, pausing the simulation. "That's what the shadows expect. They're counting on us to take the efficient path. But what if we didn't?" The massive training facility aboard the Galactic Council's carrier Starweaver had been converted into what Miguel called the Cosmic Arcade. Hundreds of gaming stations lined the walls, each running combat simulations derived from Earth's most challenging space games. Lieutenant Yuki Nakamura, his second-in-command, pulled up the statistics. "We've analyzed 300 years of human gaming history, every impossible boss fight, every seemingly unbeatable level. They all taught us something crucial about overcoming superior forces." The alien pilots moved through the facility, studying the ancient games with newfound respect. These weren't just entertainment programs. They were tactical goldmines. Each game represented millions of humans spending countless hours finding creative solutions to seemingly impossible challenges. "Your species deliberately created impossible scenarios for entertainment?" asked a young Proximan pilot, their bioluminescent patterns showing confusion. "We created them. And then we broke them," Miguel explained. "Every gaming speedrun is basically a lesson in breaking the rules of reality. We find the gaps, the glitches, the unexpected paths that the game creators never intended." He brought up footage from the recent Sirius battle. "Look familiar?" Lieutenant Rodriguez used what we call a physics exploit, finding a way to use the game's own rules against it. The shadows are like the ultimate game engine, running on pure logic, but every engine has exploits. The training began in earnest. Alien pilots learned to abandon their perfect formations, embracing the controlled chaos of human gaming strategies. They studied classic raid boss tactics, speedrunning techniques, and the art of sequence breaking, achieving objectives in unintended orders to confuse enemy predictions. "Remember," Miguel called out during a particularly intense simulation, "the shadows can predict any logical strategy instantly, so stop being logical. When they expect you to strafe left, clip through the floor instead." The breakthrough came during their first live combat exercise. A shadow patrol emerged near Jupiter's orbit, expecting to find the usual geometric fleet formations. Instead, they encountered what looked like absolute chaos. Miguel's squadron moved like a swarm of angry hornets, their flight patterns based on old bullet hell games. The alien pilots, now embracing their inner gamers, executed perfect speed boosts by canceling their ship's animations mid-movement, a technique borrowed from fighting games. Phase 2, Miguel commanded, triggering what they dubbed the Boss Rush Protocol. The squadron split into raid teams, each applying different gaming strategies simultaneously. Some used kiting techniques from MOs, drawing the shadows' attention, while others charged their special attacks. Others employed speedrun strats, using precise timing to clip through the shadows' defensive fields. The Shadow Patrol, unable to predict or counter these bizarre tactics, fell into disarray. Their perfect logical defenses meant nothing against strategies that defied logic itself. For the first time in the war, a shadow force retreated in confusion. As the cheers erupted across the command channel, Miguel smiled. Humanity had spent centuries practicing for this moment without even knowing it. Every rage quit, every triumphant victory over a seemingly impossible game boss had prepared them to face an enemy that thought it knew all the rules. "Good game," he broadcast to his squadron. "But remember, we're just getting started." This was only the tutorial level. Captain Madeline moved through the forms of Tai Chi in the zero-gravity chamber aboard the starship Eclipse, her movements creating ripples in the quantum field surrounding her. Ancient wisdom said that true strength flowed like water. And in space, that principle had gained new meaning. "The energy readings are extraordinary," murmured Science Officer Ryan Hassan, watching the holographic displays. "Her movements are somehow affecting the ship's quantum shield harmonics." Through the observation window, they watched as Mai completed the form. Each gesture left trailing patterns in the quantum field, like brushstrokes in the void. After 15 years of studying traditional martial arts, she had discovered something the advanced civilizations had overlooked. The connection between physical movement and energy flow transcended planetary boundaries. "Show me the comparison data," she requested, floating back to the control room. The displays shifted to show two battle scenarios, one using conventional energy weapons and another using her modified combat techniques. "Conventional weapons pass through the shadows," Ryan explained, "because they're too predictable. But these patterns you're generating, they're like nothing we've seen before." May nodded, studying the data. The ancient masters understood something fundamental about energy and movement. They didn't have our technology, but they grasped principles that even the shadows must obey. The Eclipse's training bay had been transformed into a fusion of ancient dojo and quantum physics laboratory. Holographic targets moved like shadows while students practiced forms from various Earth martial arts, each movement generating unique disturbances in the quantum field. Lieutenant Kai Chen, once skeptical of combining ancient practices with advanced technology, had become one of her most dedicated students. "It's like the difference between throwing a punch and guiding one," he demonstrated, his movement creating a spiral in the quantum field. "The shadows can dodge any direct attack, but they can't predict the path of energy that flows naturally." Their breakthrough came during what seemed like a routine patrol near the Perseus arm. Three shadows emerged from dimensional space, their void forms distorting reality around them. The Eclipse's conventional weapons passed harmlessly through them, just as everyone expected. "Initiate formation, Pearl," Mai commanded, her voice calm. The crew moved in practiced synchronization, their movements guided by years of martial arts training. The Eclipse itself began to move in patterns inspired by Tai Chi, its quantum shields flowing like silk in space. Each movement generated ripples in reality that the shadows couldn't simply phase through. These weren't attacks to be dodged. They were changes in the fabric of space itself. "Second form," Mai called out. "Remember, be like water." The ship's energy systems, synchronized with the crew's movements, created patterns that mimicked the flow of chi through meridians. The shadows, encountering something that was neither weapon nor shield, but a fundamental alteration of their environment, began to lose their cohesion. "Now," Mai ordered, "Dragon strikes heaven." The entire crew moved as one, their combined movements directing the ship's energy in a spiral pattern that ancient masters would have recognized. The quantum field rippled, and the shadows, for the first time, were caught in a flow they couldn't escape. When it was over, the Galactic Council's observers were speechless. Admiral Nexer's crystalline form shimmered with excitement as he reviewed the battle footage. "This is unprecedented," he declared. "You've turned your entire ship into a quantum martial arts form." Mai bowed slightly, a gesture spanning millennia of tradition. "We didn't invent anything new, Admiral. We simply remembered what our ancestors always knew, that the universe itself flows like water, and true strength comes from moving in harmony with that flow." In the days that followed, martial arts dojos opened across the fleet. Alien crews learned to move like water through space, their ships dancing with patterns that had been practiced on Earth for thousands of years. The Shadows, perfect in their logical understanding of force and counterforce, had no defense against wisdom that preceded technology itself. Commander Raj Patel stood in the meditation chamber of the starship Serenity, watching the neural patterns of his alien students fluctuate on the holographic displays. The stellar Shadows had launched their most devastating attack yet, not against ships or stations, but against minds. "Focus on the fear," he instructed, his voice steady. "Don't try to suppress it. Acknowledge its presence, like watching a storm pass through your consciousness." The Centaurian delegation struggled the most, their crystalline forms vibrating with distress. Their species had spent millennia developing perfect emotional control, only to find themselves defenseless against the Shadows' psychological warfare. Lieutenant Yuki Suzuki monitored their neural patterns from the control station. "Their cortical activity is stabilizing," she reported. "The mindfulness techniques are having an effect." Raj nodded, remembering his own journey through trauma and recovery. Before the war, he had helped Earth's disaster survivors process their experiences. Now those same techniques were becoming the galaxy's strongest psychological defense. "The Shadows expect you to either fight the fear or succumb to it," he explained. "But humans have learned a third path. We acknowledge our emotions while choosing our response to them." The Serenity's meditation chamber combined Earth's ancient wisdom with alien technology. Quantum resonators amplified the calming frequencies of Tibetan singing bowls. Holographic mandalas shifted in patterns designed to stabilize neural activity. Even the air was infused with synthesized compounds based on Earth's most calming botanicals. "Your species embraces such chaos in their minds," observed High Elder Vin of the Centaurian delegation. "How do you maintain function with so many conflicting emotional states?" "That's exactly our strength," Raj smiled. "Humans don't seek perfect emotional harmony. We've learned to find balance within the storm." Their theory was put to the ultimate test when a shadow fleet launched a coordinated psychic attack on the Orion defense line. The enemy's dimensional technology had evolved, broadcasting waves of pure terror across neural frequencies that paralyzed advanced alien minds. "All ships, initiate protocol mindful," Raj broadcast across the fleet. Throughout the human and alien vessels, crews began the emotional regulation techniques they had practiced. The Serenity's neural transmitters, reverse-engineered from shadow technology, activated. But instead of broadcasting fear, they amplified the crew's emotional resilience. Thousands of minds, human and alien alike, moved through the meditative states that humans had refined over centuries. "They're trying to modulate their attack frequency," Yuki reported, watching the sensor data. "The Shadows can't understand why their fear isn't working." Raj brought up the fleet's combined neural pattern on the main display. It was beautiful. A dance of logic and emotion, fear and courage, all existing in dynamic balance. The Shadows' attack, designed to exploit emotional suppression, found no purchase in minds that had learned to surf the waves of their own consciousness. "Now," Raj commanded, "show them what emotional mastery really means." The combined fleet channeled their emotional energy through their ship's quantum matrices. Fear transformed into determination. Anxiety became heightened awareness. Even anger found its place, carefully directed like a laser rather than suppressed or indulged. The Shadows, encountering emotional responses they couldn't predict or manipulate, began to lose their cohesion. Their psychological attacks, meeting neither resistance nor submission, reflected back upon them. In the aftermath, as the enemy fleet retreated in disarray, Raj gathered with the alien commanders in the meditation chamber. Their neural patterns had changed, no longer showing rigid control, but a new kind of stability born from understanding their own emotional depths. "We called ourselves masters of the mind," Elder Vin admitted, "but we had only mastered suppression. You've shown us true mastery comes from acceptance and integration." Raj looked out at the stars, thinking of all the human wisdom that had prepared them for this moment. "The universe itself is built on duality," he said, light and dark, order and chaos, logic and emotion. True strength comes not from choosing one side, but from finding balance between them all. Admiral Diego Vargas stood on the bridge of the flagship Stellar Symphony, watching the combined fleet assemble near the edge of shadow-controlled space. Each ship represented a different aspect of humanity's contribution to the war: bioengineered vessels, quantum martial arts platforms, gaming-inspired interceptors, and meditation-enhanced cruisers. "The Nexus Point is heavily defended," reported Captain Nina Takeda, her hands moving across the tactical display. "The shadows have created a dimensional maze around their core systems." Diego nodded, studying the swirling patterns of space-time distortion. The enemy had expected this assault, arranging their defenses in perfect mathematical formations. But he had spent months preparing something they couldn't possibly predict. "Begin Operation Starcaster," he commanded. "All ships, move to your designated harmonics." The fleet began to split into what appeared to be random groups, each taking positions that defied conventional tactical wisdom. To the Shadow's predictive algorithms, it must have looked like madness. Lieutenant Marcus Chen coordinated from the Rhythm Control Station, a new addition inspired by Earth's musical heritage. "All ships reporting ready for Movement 1, he announced. "Quantum resonance fields aligned." Diego raised his hands like a conductor before his orchestra. The fleet had practiced this countless times, but never at full scale. Each ship's energy emissions had been tuned to a specific frequency, transforming the battlefield into a cosmic instrument. "Begin the symphony," he ordered. The first movement started with the bioengineered ships, their living hulls pulsing with energy that mimicked the rhythm of a heartbeat. The shadows responded predictably, moving to intercept. But this was merely the opening note. "Second movement," Diego called. The gaming squadron spiraled through impossible vectors, their patterns based on classical music's most complex fugues. Each maneuver generated ripples in space-time that began to resonate with the bioship's pulses. Captain Takeda monitored the energy patterns. "The shadows are trying to analyze the pattern, but there isn't one. At least not one their logic can grasp." The third movement brought in the martial arts vessels, moving through space like dancers in a cosmic ballet. Their quantum fields wove between the other ships' energy patterns, creating harmonies that sent vibrations through the dimensional barriers. "They're responding exactly as predicted," Marcus reported. "Their defensive formations are shifting to counter each movement individually." Diego smiled. The Shadow's perfect logic was their weakness. They couldn't grasp that this battle wasn't about winning through force or strategy. It was about creating something entirely new. "Final movement," he commanded. "All ships, execute resonance protocol." The meditation-enhanced vessels added their frequencies to the symphony, their crews projecting emotional energies that rippled through space. The combined effect of all four ship types moving in harmony created something unprecedented, a multidimensional resonance that the shadows couldn't predict or escape. "Sir, the dimensional maze is destabilizing," Nina reported, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. "The resonance patterns are creating quantum feedback loops." The shadows attempted to adapt, their void-black forms shifting through different defensive configurations. But each change only added new frequencies to the cosmic symphony, making the resonance stronger. "Push the harmony into their nexus point," Diego ordered. "Let's show them the true power of human creativity." The entire fleet moved as one, their combined energies focused into a single pulse of pure resonance. The dimensional barriers around the shadow nexus, designed to withstand any logical attack, shattered under the pressure of an assault that followed the rules of music rather than warfare. In the aftermath, as the shadow nexus collapsed and their forces retreated in disarray, Diego looked out at his fleet, the most unlikely orchestra ever assembled. They had faced an enemy that embodied perfect logic and defeated them with art. "Send word to the Council," he instructed. "Tell them that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our technology, our tactics, or even our unpredictability. It was our ability to create beauty from chaos." 1 year after the Battle of the Shadow Nexus, Commander Junjiao stood in the newly constructed Chamber of Harmony on Earth, watching representatives from across the galaxy file in for the first meeting of the reformed Galactic Council. The chamber itself was a testament to the changes humanity had brought to cosmic civilization, its architecture blending crystalline alien technology with designs inspired by Earth's ancient temples. The quantum resonance patterns are holding steady, reported Dr. Sakura Yamamoto from her research station. The emotional harmonics we developed during the war are actually helping different species communicate more effectively. The chamber had become more than just a meeting place. It was a living symbol of the new galactic order, where logic and emotion, technology and tradition, precision and chaos all found their balance. High Counselor Ixel, now wearing robes decorated with Earth's artistic patterns, took his place at the central podium. 1 year ago, he began, "We thought we faced extinction at the hands of an enemy that embodied perfect logic. Instead, we found salvation in the most unexpected place, a species we had once considered primitive." The holographic displays showed scenes from the war. Lieutenant Rodriguez's innovative use of biotechnology, Miguel's gaming squadrons breaking formation, Captain Lin's martial arts fleets moving like dancers through space, Commander Patel's meditation techniques, strengthening minds, and Admiral Vargas conducting his final symphony of battle. But humanity's greatest gift wasn't just teaching us how to fight differently, Ixel continued. They taught us how to live differently. Throughout the galaxy, change was everywhere. The Centaurians, once purely logical, had established art academies where they studied human creativity. The Proximan fleet now incorporated gaming centers alongside their tactical rooms. Meditation chambers had become standard features on starships, and ancient Earth martial arts were being studied on 1,000 worlds. Professor Tanaka, who had first understood the power of human consciousness against the shadows, presented his latest findings. "The galaxy is evolving," he explained, "not toward perfect logic or pure chaos, but toward a harmonious balance of both. We're seeing new forms of technology that work with emotion rather than trying to suppress it." The evidence was undeniable. Ships now incorporated biological components, their living systems guided by both AI and intuition. Combat simulators ran on gaming engines, encouraging creative solutions rather than perfect efficiency. Even the quantum communication network had been reformed, allowing for the transmission of emotional context alongside data. Lieutenant Hassan demonstrated the latest breakthrough, a fusion reactor powered by the synchronized movements of its crew, combining Earth's martial arts with advanced energy generation. "Every discovery we make shows us that the universe itself thrives on balance," she explained. "The shadows failed because they embodied only one extreme. But perhaps the most profound changes were cultural. Throughout the chamber, humans and aliens moved together in easy cooperation, their differences becoming strengths rather than barriers. The galaxy had learned that true advancement came not from pursuing perfection, but from embracing the full spectrum of existence. "We stand at the dawn of a new era," Ixel concluded. "The shadows taught us the danger of pursuing logic to its extreme. Humanity taught us the power of walking the middle path, of finding wisdom in ancient ways while reaching for the stars." Commander Zhao, thinking back to that first quantum communication that had started everything, smiled. Earth's isolation had preserved something precious, not just humanity's unique qualities, but a reminder of truths the galaxy had forgotten in its rush toward advancement. As the new council began its work, the chamber's quantum fields hummed with possibility. The stars themselves seemed brighter, as if reflecting the light of a civilization that had remembered how to dream. Humanity's greatest contribution hadn't been winning the war. It had been showing the galaxy how to create peace from the perfect balance of all things.